I'm Scott Shaw. I work here in the College of Technology at Wilmington University, and this is the green screen part one of our little lesson on how to shoot green screen, how to composite green screen, and it's all done through the Media Lab. So a little bit about myself. I've been working in television and video production, interactive, DVD, web, all those things probably for the last 16, 17 years. Started off as a production internee type thing through, you guessed it, Wilmington University, and ended up working for a production company for 6 years, and while I was there for the 6 years, learned just about everything I needed to know for the rest of my career, thanks to Tom Mitten, the owner and operator of Procom at the time. After that, I spent some time in Baltimore doing stuff for Major League Baseball through their N-Step program, interviewing Major League Baseball players, editing videos together, things like that. Some other PR campaigns involved, like Garth Brooks for the chewing tobacco education program, Michelle McGrath, who is a LPGA golfer, and some other things with basic PR type stuff that companies wanted to do. I've worked on a 30-foot camera crane for ESPN, NBC Sports, Outdoor Life Channel, versus a few other things, doing sporting events, and probably the most hectic time in that area was the 1996 Olympics, when I was in 7 different cities in 1 month. So that was a lot of traveling, a lot of experience, got to meet a lot of cool people. After that, I kind of started my own company servicing the clients that followed me. Did work for HP Financial Services, you know, the computer company. Goodwill, DuPont, and a few other things, and also W.L. Gore and Associates, and a lot of their new product efforts and internal corporate pieces. So a pretty big, varied, all-encompassing bio of my video production career. Along the same lines, I'd get bored with something and pick up something else, so that's where the web and everything else kind of fit in. But one of the things that I want to talk to you about today is green screen, and there seems to be a lot of mystery around green screen, and it seems that everybody knows how to do it wrong. And you know, it sounds funny that everyone knows how to do it wrong, but they do, but they don't know quite how to get it right. And along with this video, hopefully it will be the PDF of this packet that has a really good article by Alex Lindsay, who has started the Pixel Corps, and if you know anything about the Pixel Corps, they do MacBreak Studio and a few other podcasts about this kind of stuff. He's also the creator of Conduit from DV Garage, which I'll get to in a moment. And there's a lot of things to start to consider when you do green screen. Most notably is, how much space do you have? How much lighting do you have? What are you shooting? So if it's just a stand-up like me and I'm over a green screen, you're going to have a lot less issues with something like this, as opposed to we have 40 people on set and they're all moving through the scene, and we're going to be shooting on a street in Philadelphia, and we've got to kind of block out everything behind them and key in or composite in something a little more interesting, or a little more up-to-date, a little bit more old-fashioned, whatever the job may be. So there's a lot of considerations on just what are you trying to capture and why are you doing green screen in the first place. 90% of your effort should be on production, and that last 10% should be in pulling the key and compositing the shot. It shouldn't be a day-long process of getting a good key. Now, there's going to be certain instances where you've got to rotoscope something out of your scene. You know, you've got a piece of set equipment that you just can't get around. Doing some other visual effects where you need to have somebody in there to trigger something, and you've got to composite them out. If the scene itself is complex and you've got some things that you have to either rotoscope out, wire removal, things like that. So why is it called green screen when typically it started off as blue screen? It just doesn't matter if you use green or blue. What really matters is what is the setting you're putting it in, and what are the people wearing. So if they're wearing something green, chances are you're going to be doing blue screen and vice versa. So, and Alex really does a good job in his article. I don't even know why I'm doing this, because you could just read his article. But, you know, again, this is a workshop type thing, and I want to kind of go over the meat of the article. So you really want to think about, what do you have at your disposal? Do you need the Roscoe can of paint that's going to cost you $80, or can you go to Home Depot and mix your own? Well, that's where there's a wonderful resource called Hollywood Camera Work, and this series of DVDs, it's in the packet, I'll give you the link to, really goes through visual effects for the director. So if you're trying to shoot this and you're going to have to pull off a visual effects shot, the $300 that it costs for the 7 DVD set is well worth the price of admission. It goes through all kinds of setups. So from a small studio, similar to this, to much larger studios, there's all kinds of good tidbits in those DVDs. And one of my favorites is, you know, the section on green screen markers. So if you're doing any kind of camera moves, you can track the camera moves and be able to pull off the green screen. So in the first image that Alex has in his article, he's got his setup there that he's using. You can see that he's using these like really compact LED lights. He's got a ton of distance between the chair and the actual green screen. And that's pretty much the first point that you want to remember, is to have enough distance between your subject and the green screen. If you don't have enough distance, you'll get shadows, you'll get, you won't have a clean back plate, in other words, a clean plate to pull your key off of. There's some other things that kind of come into play, like spill. So if you're really close to the green screen, that light is going to be reflected around, and it's going to, you know, basically spill over onto the subject that you have. So that distance that you have, 6 feet is good. If you can get more, great. If you can't, you might be in a small office shooting a green screen. You know, you have to work with what you have. So there's all kinds of materials that you can use for the green screen. We found a comparable color, went to Home Depot, got the paint mixed and matched, put up the green, and it works great. There's all kinds of formulas and things online that you can find out. The Hollywood Camera Work visual effects DVD set gives you really good, super thorough on how to mix your own paint, and even gives you some recommendations as to color chips and charts that you can use to get your green screen done. As far as fabric, there's several pop-up, kind of like your reflectors for photo stuff, that, and you'll see later that you can attach to the wall, attach using C-stands, throw it up outside so you can get that natural light, which is good, because if you're doing an outdoor scene, nothing busts the shot more than artificial look lighting. So if you can get the natural sunlight and natural lighting of your scene anyway, it's easier to drop the screen there than to come back into the studio and do it. There's all kinds of stuff that you can use out there. You can find fabric swatches that are available to do it. You can buy the really fancy, expensive kits from Digital Juice or B&H or Aerie or things like that. And you want no wrinkles. No wrinkles. If you have wrinkles, that creates variance in the color. Okay, and we'll come back to what this screen should look like when you're going to shoot. The second tip that I usually give folks is light the screen first, then bring in your subject, and then light them separately from your green screen, because you really don't want the two to mash or mix with each other. And that's what that first photo is showing you, is that there's really a good clean separation. You can actually see the spill in the photo of how much that green is reflecting off that background. The second shot in here, the one with the chair facing away from you, that's the setup for the talent. So again, if you're doing something like this in front of a desk, you can get away with a lot of just the same lighting for your scene, but it's really recommended that you light the screen first, then you bring in the talent and you light them. And again, you don't have to go crazy with the light kits. Do you need a $1,500 ARRI kit? No, it sure would be nice, but you can get away with a lot using the Home Depot challenge. A lot of folks talk about Kinos or KinoFlows, fluorescent lighting for green screening, whether they're better or worse, or the performance hit that you can get away from. If you use KinoFlows on your background, they do an excellent job of even lighting, as opposed to Fresnels or other ARRI lighting instruments or typical studio lighting kits. There's even plans online to build your own KinoFlow type setup, and then you can buy the Kino bulbs separately, which is a lot less expensive than going and buying a set of KinoFlow lighting. Alex has a pretty good diagram. If you get to have the amount of space that they're recommending here, and there's a lot of things that you can do on set to ensure that you're going to get and pull a good green screen. I use a piece of software called Conduit, which allows you to do live compositing from a FireWire feed. I'm using my iSight camera right now. So there's a lot of benefit from doing on-set checks. In other words, let me just pull a key real quick. Even if you have to digitize it, throw it into Final Cut or After Effects, pull your key just to see what you're going to have to be dealing with when you go back and start to do your post on it. Let's see. One of the things that you definitely want to have with you when you do green screen stuff is some kind of scope. And that's what this software is giving you. Conduit has it. Another piece of software called Adobe On Location, which will allow you to kind of do the same thing. We'll have a series of scopes that you can kind of check what you have going on. If you have a studio, you're obviously going to have scopes going on in the control room that you can check and see what your RGB and your color values are going to be. The more consistent that your green screen is, the better off you are. If you have some gradations of where you have like hot corners on the sides, or you have darker corners in the bottoms, or if the person's standing, you have some darkness around their feet or shadows inside the feet, it's going to be harder to pull a key in that area. If you can avoid doing head-to-toe stuff, it's difficult. It's doable, but it's difficult with typical DV type footage because of the color compression, which leads me to my next section. So let's say you've got the lighting set up, you've got your green screen set up, you have your talent lit, you check the RGB values and the scopes, you're all happy with that. What is it that you're going to be shooting on? Are you going to be shooting on DV with a single chip? That's not going to be as good as if you chose a 3-chip camera that has 1/3 inch chips, or some other high quality 3-chip cameras with a good lens and a good format. And Alex does a really good job in the article of defining and breaking down what 411 or 422 or 444 color space really comes down to. And this is important because if you're going to shoot on DV footage, you're only going to be given a sliver of what information you need in order to pull the key for your footage. Whereas if you shot something with uncompressed, like the studio cameras we have here, you're giving yourself a lot more range to play with, and you're going to get that higher quality key that's going to pull off for your project or destroy your project. The biggest thing is going to be edges. I would hate to have to key my hair because it's fuzzy and it doesn't have any kind of uniform stuff. Hair is always a trick. Transparent things like smoke, transparent material or like billowy type stuff is always more difficult because it's see-through. Now that doesn't mean it's impossible, it's just you have to think about how that's going to translate and what you're shooting on and what are you giving yourself to work with. Okay. He goes into a lot about compression and color space, where if you're interested in that, you can read more about. But you really want to understand what you're shooting on and how that's going to affect you later on. If you're going to be shooting in a studio and you have all four sides or all three sides and your floor covered in green, you're going to get spill no matter what. So you need to be able to get rid of that spill once you pull your key. If you're going to have camera moves, you want to give yourself tracking markers. And again, Hollywood Visual Effects for Directors gives an awesome overview of how to create your markers, what kind of markers you should create, what to paint them, how to make your own custom markers, how to use stuff that's in the studio already to give yourself and your software enough information to be able to track what the camera is doing and be able to pull off the key that you want. And again, it really depends on what you're shooting. If you have a camera move and it's a close-up, a simple 2D track is going to be able to pull off the shot. If you have a much bigger camera move where you're coming around somebody and it starts close and pulls off wide, you're going to need to think about how you're going to track that particular shot and put your background in so it's not slipping. If you have somebody standing on the floor and the floor is slipping around as the camera moves, that busts your shot, that busts the scene. It doesn't come off as realistic, and people see that and, well, you didn't pull it off. And if your Aunt Betty notices that something's not quite right, you haven't done your job. And doing this type of stuff, you want to be seamless. You don't want to be able to tell that that's a key. So there's all kinds of tools within the software arena that you can use to help ensure that the production part, the actual shooting of your green screen, is going to be correct. One of those things, again, is Conduit. I'd highly recommend Conduit or On Location, or at least some set of scopes. The next thing that you want to remember is make sure that this thing behind you is as smooth and as uniform as you can get it. So when you look on the waveform and vector scope, you should see a definitive line going out towards green. You should see a consistent level of green going across it. The wider that band is, the harder it's going to pull your key, you're going to be able to pull your key. Also, your spill. If you have green reflecting on your skin, when you're standing where your talent is, you may want to think, okay, do I have enough distance between myself or the talent and the green screen, and be able to light those two things separately. So if you keep all those things in mind, the production of your green screen shot will be that much better. Other gotchas that you want to avoid, any kind of quick pan zooms, anything that you're going to be moving the camera to where you're not going to get a clean edge. Because with interlaced video, you're going to have kind of like this weird even and odd thing happening, or you may have blurred frames. And anytime you have that blurriness, it's going to really make for a difficult key. Try not to move the camera if you can. If you are going to move the camera, the big studios use camera control units, where it's basically a robot that holds a camera, can do the exact same move every single time, on point, exactly how you programmed it. If you don't have that, good luck. With the camera move, you want to be able to track those things in a motion tracking software like PFTrack, Synthesize, or if you have the money, Buju, to be able to get that data and pass that camera position back to your compositing software or your 3D application so that it can place the camera as accurately as possible. Also, take some measurements, take some notes when you're doing these things. How far are you away from the green screen? How far are you away from the talent? What's the center point of your lens? What is the focal settings of your lens? What's the type of the lens that you have on there? All the specifications that you can write down. Some of the motion tracking software or match moving software will use that information to get a better solve for your shot. So when you do take that into a compositing software, it's locked in as close as possible to real life. And that's what it's doing. It's calculating where that lens is in the motion tracking and match moving software. So, you can't take too many notes when you do this stuff. And, make sure you're in focus, for crying out loud. That's another thing that, if you have a soft focus, it's going to make it that much more difficult to pull your key. Shoot on the right format. Again, use uncompressed if you can. In this day and age, you can get HD quality footage out of a small camera, but is that the best thing for your situation? If you have access to other 3-chip cameras or higher end HD equipment through your school or through somebody you know, use that. You're not going to go wrong with giving it more quality. But also know where you're going. You don't want to shoot HD just to have HD and then end up on DVD or on the web if you're not deploying to an HD content. So you've got to balance all of those things. Also, really ask yourself why you're doing the green screen shot in the first place. Is it more practical to do it in real life and set up the scene for real? Or is it, because of a safety issue? Or is it because it's just something visually you don't have the budget to pull off if you're doing set extension or, placing some people on a mountain or something like that? Why are you doing the green screen shot in the first place? Really justify the shot. Really justify the time and effort that you're going to have to put into that shot in order to pull it off. There's 2 books. The first one's, let me pull up this one first. Motion. It goes over a lot of those things of compositing and how to set up your scene, how to pull a key, among other things like just plain old motion graphics of scaling and moving and things like that. But having a good reference book on the software you're using, whether it's Motion, Nuke, After Effects, Fusion, whatever it is, get a good reference manual because those things are going to be key when you're having issues. The other book that I want to point out is the Encyclopedia of Visual Effects. It's through the Apple Pro Training Series. I'm not sure if it's still available since Shake is kind of going out the window, but it does cover Shake, Motion, and After Effects. Now, Shake and Nuke, they're node-based compositors, so the same techniques that you would use in one are applicable to the other. This book will help you kind of pull together like what are the filters and things that you're applying to your video footage. What do they actually do? The other one is a book by a fellow by the name of Stephen Wright. I think it's digital effects for film and video. It's in its 3rd or 4th edition, and it actually goes through and explains what the software is doing when you pull a key. In other words, what are you doing to the color information, and how does this magic happen from a math standpoint? Like, what is it doing to the color, and how's it coming together to make a composite? And it explains all of those things. What an over or an overlay or a screen or a multiply, what do those things do to your image, and how can you leverage those things to pull off your effect? So these are C-stands. They are a little known tool to production. And for a while the school didn't have any of these things. So now we do. The reason I bring them up is when you're shooting green screen, you may have to use them. There's a little trick. The way that these things tighten, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, is that you want the weight of it to go to where it tightens the thing and not loosens the thing. Because if for some reason you undo one of these things and let it go, it's not going to smack somebody in the head or yourself in the head. You also want to use sandbags. We currently have some somewhere around here, but definitely if you're going to rent these things, ask for sandbags, and at least 2 per C-stand, because you never know how far out you're going to extend these things to, for whatever you're doing. You may have to hang a light from one, you may have to hang a microphone from one, or in this case, it's kind of set up to hang a drape from one. It's good to get an extra arm with your set. So when you rent these things, if you get 3 or 4 of them, just throw in an extra arm and maybe an Apple box or something, or Apple box set, which is basically just a bunch of wooden boxes that you can use to prop things up or set things on, or when you're waiting around the set, sit on. But these things are extremely handy because of what they allow you to do and what you can kind of manipulate outside of your typical light stand. The typical light stand is flimsy at best, and is not going to support the weight of a really good curtain or green screen. So my lovely assistant Jeff handed me one of the Arri light kits. Now this is a Arri light stand, and they come in different varieties, but it's a good light stand, but it's meant for lights and nothing really more heavy or binding than that. C-stands are a lot more robust. I've seen guys hang off of these things in various circumstances, and I would not want to hang off of a light stand. They're just not made for that. So if you need to get a light kind of back behind something and for a backlight purpose, a lot of times gaffers and grips will use the C-stand over a typical light stand just because you can do more stuff. Now these heads will fit on here because Arri's smart enough to realize that maybe you want to put one of these knuckles on there, or you need to mount something else on top of here or extend something out for a dot or a flag. So if you're getting a glare off of a specific light, you can use this equipment to do that, in addition to a dot and flag kit. And basically it's little circles on flexible wire that you can attach to these things. Flags are just that. They're long, thin, heavy black fabric that you can use to cut light off or get rid of reflections or things like that. And you want to think about those things when you're shooting for green screen, because if there's a reflection or something, or you're getting some weird light, you can use those tools to eliminate it and get rid of that stuff. They are finger pinching devices, so be careful when you're storing them and doing work with them. The legs fold up so that they can lay flat, but these things are usually fairly beefy and sometimes quite heavy. These are heavier than most. They have like some spring mechanism in the bottom, and they also have the removable legs, so you can even go farther with some of the equipment that's out there for this. So I wanted to bring this up because you never know when you're going to have to use it, and if you're going to drop a screen outside, this is the stuff that you're going to have to use.